with our committee meetings now, we've been trying to live cast onto Zoom, just to kind of encourage that public participation and to try and get our meetings to be a little more open, a little more transparent and accessible. I can't seem to get the Zoom to stream to YouTube right now, but we are still recording on Zoom itself, so we'll be able to post that video later, just so that everybody's aware. But it is after 11, so Charlie, if you want to get started.
Yep. Call the meeting to order. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve? We got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Miller.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Everybody read the minutes? Any additions to the minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve minutes.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
It's gotta be policy.
Okay.
Yeah. Move from Andy.
Okay.
Second, Miller.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. RPA-18 Policy Board Officer Interim Elections.
Perfect. So this is something that I put on the agenda just from discussion that we had last week. Going through our bylaws, we realized we do have a chair for both the policy and the technical committees, but we don't have a vice chair for either. Historically, the way that we've worked that is because the meetings are running consecutively, we can kind of dance around a bit and say, well, if the policy board chair is not here, then the technical chair can run the meeting, but technically we're not really supposed to be mixing those voting procedures. So I wanted to present to the board today just to see if it was in the board's interest to elect a vice chair. Official elections we will be running at the meeting in, I believe, June, for effective term date starting in July. But because we don't currently have a vice chair, it is within the bylaws constraints that we can elect one kind of in between those election cycles. So any questions or discussion?
Your recommendation, wouldn't it?
Well, I was yeah, like previously you said that the technical committee chair ran the meeting. I mean, that would still work as long as it didn't vote, right?
Right, that would still work.
Yeah, that was what I was concerned about before. Charlie never misses any meetings, so it was kind of strange, Charlie. This is like a Charlie role.
Sometimes I have two meetings at the same time, so that pick.
This stems from Charlie wasn't here last week and we didn't know what to do with ourselves.
Yeah, that's what happened. And then the meeting moved to Friday, so that's why I'm here.
But you said we're on elections in June.
June-ish, yeah, I believe.
There's probably no point.
Okay.
Fixing it now, is there?
Well, if there's no interest in fixing it now, we don't have to.
Well, as long as you pick up the slack if we need it.
Unless we got a volunteer.
That's true. I should let you ask for nominations.
I can do that too. Do we have any nominations?
For a bit of clarification, the role of vice chair at this point is basically to kind of run the meetings if our chair, Charlie Parkhurst, is not attending on that particular day. That's about the extent of the responsibilities at this point.
For a term or two more?
For a
meetings?
term of about 2 or 3 more meetings, yeah.
I can just wait till June.
Okay, we'll move on then.
You're going anywhere between now and June, right, Charlie? You're going anywhere between now and June.
Unless good Lord decides I need to leave.
We'll count on it.
Okay, fiscal year 2025 service transportation block grant. Number 4.
Okay, so we are now into project selection. So at our last meeting, I went over the project proposals that we had received. We received 2 project applications for STBG, which is our service transportation block grant, and 2 proposals under our transportation alternative set aside program, which is what was formerly TAP, and with the rejigging of the rules is now TASA under Iowa DOT. So quick review of those applications. We had one for Mills County for an M16 asphalt overlay for 1.1 million in STBG funding. L20 asphalt resurfacing and shouldering from Harrison County for 600,000 in STBG. And then for TASA, we had the City of Logan Safe Routes to School project, which I believe Tyler Hinkle is online today to answer any questions you guys might have about that project. The request for funding was $353,000, and then we have Shelby County Trails Board Ballpark to Ballpark Trail, of which we have Pat and Dean here from the Shelby County Trails Board, and that request was for $309,000. So a quick review of those STBG projects. I've got projects up the top again. I went through and scored and ranked these projects based on the criteria that we had discussed at previous meetings. So for STBG, I think everybody should have a printout of that scoring rubric. It is a ranking score as opposed to an assignment of numerical scores. So we look at all of those listed criteria. We analyze which of the two projects ranked higher in that criteria. And then based on how many criteria they were first ranked in, then that project gets first rank scoring. Any questions?
So Lindsay, help me understand.
Of course.
Are we working from a pool of funds?
We are. So we get an allocation every year from Iowa DOT for both STBG and TASA. We believe it's about $2 million-ish for STBG and about 200,000 or so for TAP, for the TASA program. So yeah,
we're deciding today how those funds are going to be distributed.
correct.
So we could have two choices for the SDBG.
Yes, so there are two proposed projects. I have the programming spreadsheet that I'll pull up in a minute that kind of outlines the current projects that we have programmed within the fiscal constraint of our current TIP, which is our Transportation Improvement Program. Our TIP has to be fiscally constrained, which means that we can't program more money than we have allocated to us. Our TIP goes out for 4 years. So the one that we're doing right now will be our fiscal 25 TIP, and that'll cover 2020 or fiscal year 25, 26, 27, 28. And that includes the current allocations that we've been assigned from Iowa DOT, in addition to the forecasted allocations that they've sent us for what they anticipate providing us as our regional allocation for those forecasted out years.
Thank you.
Do you also have an updated regional equity?
So
You knew I was gonna ask.
I knew
right?
you were gonna ask about that. So that spreadsheet did kind of get a little lost in the transition when Travis left. The reason that I didn't put one together for this meeting, so for those new to the group, the regional allocation spreadsheet that John is referring to was a tool that we had used historically in project selection that kind of looked at each of the counties and kind of how much funding they were allocated for their projects going back a certain number of years to try and kind of make that funding distribution even between the counties. The reason that I didn't put that together today, which doesn't mean I can't if we want to look at it and make a decision in April, is because we have been very specifically advised by Iowa DOT that we are not to sub-allocate funds in that way, that we are supposed to be looking at the projects that are submitted based on merits, based on the scoring criteria that we go through, and then whatever discussion happens in this room.
And to put a finer point on this, we are not trying to prohibit smaller communities from applying or being able to apply. So the very fine point behind this is let's look at the projects based on their merit and how we can fit them in with fiscal constraint, irregardless of where they're going. I think we're trying to develop a competitive process based on information and data-driven processes. Now, if we don't like how we're currently scoring things, that is a very fine point. We are going into our long-range transportation plan in the next year, and we can surely use your help in helping define how we score these things, right? So that's what Lindsay has. The two projects before you are the Mills County and Harrison County. Lindsay has more details on that.
So how much money is available for the TAP and for the SDBG?
What a great question, Steve. We will move into, I have this programming spreadsheet set up. So for STBG, this is our currently programmed TIP from 24, which is the current fiscal year that we're in right now, and then showing 25 through 28. The new applications are down in the bottom here. And then these tables, what you can see is the beginning balance, which is how much kind of rollover funds we have remaining from the previous year. The apportionment, which is what Iowa DOT has said we've been given as our regional allocation, and then forecasted out through 25 to 28. The existing project cost, which is just the sum of all of the projects we have in the rows above. The scenario cost, which right now is kind of the predicted scenario that I have put in there, but would be based on adding those new projects. And then the existing final balance, which is what we would have to roll over to the next fiscal year based on those funding allocations. So right now, if we do no projects at all, so actually, I'm gonna back up a little bit and provide a bit of background information on the Mills County project. So Jacob, you said that your application for this year for that M16 project is kind of an increase in funding on a project that was previously approved for our TIP. I think in fiscal 23 was the year it went through, is that right? I think it was fiscal 23.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so when we did this process in 23, we approved Mills County for $400,000 for an M16 rehab. What happened then is Mills County, you guys pushed that project out to 28 in their county 5-year plan. And when that happened, it was outside of those bounds of our fiscal constraint tables. So it wasn't showing up in TPMS anymore. So it wasn't showing up in the STIP, it wasn't showing up on our end. So when that happened, when we did our TIP in fiscal 24, that project was left out because it wasn't within those years. So what I have right here is that $400,000 that it was originally approved for, not in our last TIP, but the TIP before. So trying to make sure that that at least goes back in based on the selection process that took place at that time. And then if we want to increase that to the requested 1.1, that would put us out of fiscal constraint with the new Harrison County project. So effectively what we have right now is once this $400,000 is accounted for and returned to the TIP, we have a $700,000 increase request for that project, in addition to a $600,000 project request from Harrison County. So if I up this to the full requesting amount, you can see that existing final balance puts us at negative $166,000, which would put us outside of our fiscal constraint. So we need to make a decision here then whether we want to increase the funding for the Mills County project, approve the Harrison County project, what kind of project movement we might want to look at, and something might need to get pushed out into fiscal 29 for next year.
And can I say, I am strangely fascinated that Lindsay could do this in real time and you guys can see what the budget impacts are. So bravo to Lindsay. She had to recreate some of these tables. So like, thanks for doing this. One minor thing, are the people online able to see the table?
Oh, no, I should probably share that properly. I think they're still looking at the presentation. Or not, or I don't know if they're looking at anything actually. So sorry to the people online, that was my mistake. Let me pull this table up for you. Okay, can everybody see that now? Scott and Tyler? Perfect, thank you.
So if Mills County reduces their project by $170,000, we'd be within fiscal constraint.
That's correct.
That's what I
Didn't we
would
have
suggest.
a illustrative number out there on the project?
So they, Pot County had an illustrative out on our last tip, so that's this 22, that's this 2.2 million here that we had approved in illustrative 28, because 28 was outside our fiscal constraint year last
So
year.
that's included.
And that's currently included, yes.
You say approved as an illustrative, but it's not on this,
It's
On
not
the
currently
tip.
in the tip, that's correct.
not on the tip, so we didn't actually approve it, it's just there.
It didn't fit the year.
It didn't, yeah,
Right.
it didn't make it
We
into
didn't vote
last
on it.
year's.
We didn't
tip.
put it in the tip. We didn't, it's a wish
Yeah.
for future.
That would go in this year's, right? Because
Without,
28.
with, if it was approved this year. It's
Correct.
never been approved yet, just as a correction
Okay.
to the term.
That's fair, thank you.
Up on the
Yeah.
chopping block
That's
is
fair.
Pottawattamie.
Well,
I'm kidding.
it
No,
makes
but
more
like-
sense to cut that one than it does to cut Mills County project, because that one's just illustrative.
It's a wish based on regional equity, if that. bearing on anything.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's good to know, John.
I keep talking about the regional equity, but it's really to keep me from being a bully, and I
Right.
don't understand.
Let's to
Yeah, and
keep
I do the
everyone in their
same
own
thing.
lane.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep us all in our own lanes.
Without that, we're
And the
just gonna
DOT,
do the max amount every year and then.
right,
And my issue is I've been trying to save a large amount, so when I let a federal project, this paperwork's the same if you're doing a $200,000 project or $2 million project when it's
Right.
federalized, so somehow, yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is I need to be able to build a balance to do a significant project. That's
it's a
always
lot
been my
nicer
concern.
to do one every 3 years than to do
Yeah,
one.
I'd rather do
those-
one every 5 or whatever it is, I just, the problem is if applications come in and you're spending the money in those 4 years and keep pushing it out, I guess, then
Right. They've become such a pain.
there's not
in
a
the
savings
neck.
plan here.
Those federal aid projects are getting more and more
Expensive.
intrusive. No, not expensive, just a freaking mess. I mean, they're just the paperwork and the documentation and the computer tracking on that, trying to close out. We're trying to close out 4 projects from last year that
We'd all be better off letting them handle our projects with
Right.
these funds.
absolutely, and getting rid of the small ones. But at one time, we talked about just taking the allocation every year and not coming in. But that's gone by the wayside too. But that spreadsheet is a way of us keeping track of where we want to be. And we're gonna do that between the 4 counties anyway, and try to keep the cities and the counties in it, whether you give us the spreadsheet or not, we'll do it on our own. And because like John, Harrison County doesn't want to be a bully either. We want to get our share, give it to the other cities and counties in an equal amount based on population.
I just want to be able to set that marker out there and know I have 3 million.
Yeah, right.
Sitting out there in the year I want it.
Kind of Steve's comment in John's point. So when would that 2.27 for Pot County be submitted? So John could actually count on that.
I applied for it, it didn't fit in that year.
Yeah,
Last
but I'm
year.
just
so I
saying,
bumped
when,
it.
so within our current kind of timing and
And
approvals, when could John say, okay, I can count on that?
and my understanding was, the decision last year was, we'll put it in the out year with knowing that's the first one that gets funded, right? Like, that was my understanding. Maybe we could go back into the notes and check it out.
That was when I
But-
applied, it didn't fit in the
Yeah.
year.
That's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah,
It
and
can't
so,
come first because you're still looking at the scoring and you're still looking at equity.
yeah, and we did not
And everybody else
score John's in this room. Does that make sense? Like,
Right,
if
because
you guys want, we can, we'll take a little bit of time and rescore John's and present to you an updated scoring sheet. 1, 2, and 3 is gonna be how it's gonna be. And we could do that, and then we could pass that information along to you all.
Do you have a score on that, John, already?
That was a year ago.
Yeah, I'll dig up the application, and we can score it.
If we don't do equity, there's 2 million next year or whatever, we all apply for 2 million. Then we decide who gets it.
Right.
Are we just gonna boil it back down to the equity? Well, why don't you take, or your equity should be, you take yours, I'll take mine. So,
Yeah,
How many
and
times
I
we always
think-
come back to it somehow.
I think part of it is, look, we're all friends here. We're not gonna try to hurt anyone else, right? Like most of the
Today.
But one of the things that we are trying to do is also make these funds available to smaller communities, right? We could only provide funding based on who applies, right? So if we only have 2 applications and they're both county applications, then, hey, you guys can have whatever discussion you guys want. We are just trying to prevent, one, the appearance that it's only county money, right? We want to make sure that it's available to everyone within our RPA-18 boundaries, right? Whether it's city of Glenwood, what's a smaller city, city of Shelby, that they're able to apply. Whether or not they apply, is not within my control. I can make them aware that the funding's available. But in the end, they have to apply and they have to meet certain thresholds for it, right? And I can't force people to.
The issue is though, the small towns aren't eligible to apply because they don't have a federal aid route that isn't already being maintained by the county. So, I mean, you could say you're setting this aside for Shelby's, but Pot County is maintaining the road on the Pot County side and Shelby County's maintaining on the north side. You know, Underwood, I worked through all the roads on Underwood that would be eligible for this. So many of those towns don't have an eligible project to begin with, yet their populations counted as far as, you know, the county that they're in, unless they're over the 5,000.
That's right, 15 or 20 years ago, it would have been different. You know, there were counties that didn't help those small cities along, but at this point, all four of these counties are plenty willing to step back and help the cities in the county and help the cities in the other counties to get an equal share or to get what they can handle. And I think all four of these counties are handling it just like John is, that we go through all of those small towns and do everything we can to shoulder all of those costs, you know, except for the sidewalks and the gutters and the parking.
And
And
it's more than-
sometimes for the cities, the sidewalks and the gutters, and those are their more important aspects.
We've made that determination that those aren't eligible for this funding, haven't we?
But that's not what the federal legislation
if
allows.
we're spending
Yeah.
related through a town, we gotta fix the, you know, the ramps and the sidewalks.
That's only if you disrupt the circulation path.
Yeah, and we could bring additional
So the parallels,
guidance.
you don't have to.
Yeah, I could bring in additional guidance regarding ADA, the new PROAG laws. If that's interesting to you all, we could bring that in. But in the end,
In what
like,
way?
what we had before you is 3 projects. You know, you guys could take an initial stab and see what you guys want to do. A different option can also be, we could look at programmed funding for 25, 26. Have a realistic conversation. Everything that's programmed in 25 and 26, are those really gonna go in 25 or 26? Do we need to shift them to a different year, or do we move them out to an out year? Again, that's a conversation for you all to kind of decide to help fit some of these balance issues that we're talking about.
I think we could probably address that right now. Could you, John, or you got anything on the tip that's gonna be delayed?
I had one down a little lower. 325 there,
The Magnolia Road.
yeah. Can you go down the balances? Thank you. There might be something there. Really wasn't prepared to talk about it today, or
Yeah, and
we were
could
thinking
go-
about it today, even so.
Yeah, that's fine.
325 is not even gonna barely touch the cost of that project.
Yeah,
So I don't
and,
know if the rest of my funds are pooling up fast enough to.
and part of the conversation for us is to understand, like, are we on target for the ones that I'm gonna care most about are 25 and 26. If those need to shift out, that's gonna impact some of the balances in the later years, which might influence your decision on what to fund, right? So the first check is, hey, there's actually 2 things we want to check on. Hey, are the ones that are listed in 24, 25 realistically going to be let in those years? If they're good, they don't need to move, that's fine, great. The second question is also, hey, and this is more of a reality check for us, since we went through this exercise, we took this information based on the TPMS. If there's something you think that we may have missed, we're owning up to it. We may not have gotten it. Please let us know as well. We'll share this table, and I think Lindsay has shared this table. If there is something that was supposed to be in the tip that we didn't get to, apologize in advance. I'll take the blame. But let us know so we can put it and program it in.
Yeah, and I don't think I've distributed this, but I can definitely make sure to do that after the meeting.
Yeah.
So I guess our first questions then, so fiscal 24 is coming up end of September, is that right? Because we're on federal. So for Glenwood and Mills County, are those two letting, have they let already? Do you guys have a project status
Mine just
update?
let this
Yeah.
week.
Okay. Perfect. And I don't know, Angie, if you have any update on that Glenwood project?
I know they're talking about they're doing it, but I don't know where Jamie was on vacation. He's not here today. so I don't know.
Yeah, we can follow up on that one. then,
Yeah.
too.
Plenty of time still.
We'll talk to him when he gets back.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
WDOT letting here.
Honestly, I don't know. I came on board in January and I'm learning all this. They've not shared all that with me, so I don't know.
The cities can't let a federal project go, but I just don't know what your rules are. You have let through the DOT. Yeah.
We also did have, oh, what?
We do. Otherwise, we create flex.
So Steve, you also requested to move that F-20 project out, is that right?
Yeah. Put the new project in for 600,000 and 27 like you show it, and then move the project for 1,145,000 out to 28. That's on Eastern Trail. I can't see it. There it is. It's going. That's showing N28 like I requested.
We could show it in 29 and that would help.
Everything else there is on track.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, perfect.
Should be.
Yeah, show it in 29. We'll have this meeting.
Yeah, let's show it in.
Oh, thanks.
Maybe like deja vu. Thanks, Carlos.
Once it's approved, like Jake's project, I think it should be respected.
Yeah,
let
and
the-
Jake's project was, the M16 was approved for 2028. Well, it was approved earlier, but then moved
426
out.
and then moved out, which,
But it was only for 400,000. So the approval would, this new approval would be for
with
that
funding
gap,
increase.
Right,
right? So it's a funding increase. It's still locked in 2028 for 400. That's the base. We're just looking at that increase, if you guys want to fund that. And then two, the question would be, if they don't fund the increase, do you still want to keep it?
since we're flexible and are able to change things, except from July to October, we can't change anything,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's that big a deal if things,
Yeah.
if the project doesn't work out.
The first 2 years are the critical ones. We care most about the 27s and 28s. They can keep pushing forward a little bit more, but that's it.
Is there a way that we could give you feedback on that to make sure that that those projects are moving along besides checking in TPMS? Do you guys have access to development where you can see the development progress of these projects?
Not so much. I mean, we mostly just have access. We can access the county 5-year plans
But
and we
not-
can access TPMS, but I don't think we get any more
Not
fine print
TPMS
than that.
development.
Yeah, so we usually end up needing to kind of send an email out to all the project sponsors around this time of year just to get like general update on how far along the project is, if it's still on track for letting for the year it was originally approved or what.
Maybe you could work it out with Nikki or somebody at Local Systems that they would send you an update on the projects in our region.
Yeah.
Whether or not they've met their, you know, not every criteria, but once every 3 months or something.
Yeah, and we ran into like, yes, I agree with that.
Okay.
Like, we were trying to help out the city of Glenwood with a different project a couple of years ago, and it was very difficult on something that should not have been very difficult. But yes, I agree.
I checked with Amber, the administrator, she said they did, the DOT did the letting on.
Oh, okay, so that one has been let already?
Yes.
Okay, so then we won't need to worry about moving either of those projects up.
Lindsay,
Yes.
although it's not a huge component, but the 273 for the river project has been moved. Is that 273 carrying down? And
It is, yeah. So it is still coming out of that STVG allocation. So they're on the Iowa DOT side, they've switched it over to TAP, but it's still coming out of the funding that we've been holding on to for it. So we still need to account for it here, but it's from that reserve funding that's been in our balances for however many years at this point. So that's why it's still reflected in this table. But it will please everybody to know that that project is making progress and might be constructed.
It'll be let in December
It'll be let in December, so,
or latest January.
yep, thanks. Which is exciting. Yeah, so what we want to decide on today, and we don't need to decide on it today, we do currently have another meeting scheduled for April 10th if we want to collect some of this additional information and kind of circle back. But what we're either going to request today or at that April 10th meeting is which projects we want to approve for how much funding to get these tables down into fiscal constraint. Well, while ensuring that we stay within fiscal constraint.
I don't see the scores for the two projects, the Harrison County and Mills County.
Yeah, so those are ranked scores. So if you go to the very bottom of that table, there's a 1 and a 2. Yeah, so
Doesn't have a point.
it doesn't have a point system. So that is the scoring criteria that we've been working off for a number of years at this point. That is also something that we can reevaluate for our next project selection process. If we want to break that down more into a numerical scoring set, we can absolutely do that. We would just have to do that for our next project selection because the applications that were submitted for this cycle were based on that scoring criteria. And we just did a very substantial overhaul on the MPO side on how we score projects for STBG funding. And we might be able to mimic something off of that. Like we have things that we can base off if we want to reevaluate how we score our projects for New York.
On the Mills County project, that cost increased this year or previous year when that started at 400, right?
Yeah.
Then you increased it last year or is it increasing it now?
Just now.
Project didn't change, it's just an increase in funding.
If that's out in 28, would you mind making that 930,000 and fix the funding? Got until 28 to find another 160,000.
Could I propose we all decrease 50,000?
No. I don't know why you don't reduce the Pot County one because you have a greater percentage of federal money compared to local money in that one, don't you?
Yeah, so I'm trying to build a, that's a $8 million project I'm trying to build up to. So that's what I don't ever know. Do I ask for multi-year funding to actually do a project? Or can I program a larger project and actually get the balance built? So I'm still waiting for this committee to kind of give me sight and how to program that far out.
I would say break it into 2 years and cut the project in half.
It's just 5 miles. I don't know if I want to cut it any further than that, so.
Does it connect to Harrison County?
Oh. We're gonna start from G30 Underwood, yeah, we're working upwards. We're going north on that. 15 segments.
So 5 miles won't get you to Harrison.
No,
On which route?
L34.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna work from G30 north. We're at Underwood there. That's our worst stretch and reconstruct that
Okay.
north. But that's running about 800,000 a mile now.
Wow.
No, about 1 million miles.
I think we all agree, we're all fine doing the equity thing. It's only coming from the DOT that says we can't.
Yeah.
Can we say we're basing it off ranks, but still stay in our lanes and actually do it in equity?
If
Yeah,
scoring
so
lines
both
up.
to discuss and decide how you guys want to decide.
So I think we all agree on where
Yeah.
it's all the best way. I think it's fair.
These are like highway funds, we haven't talked about trail funds.
Yeah, this is a
You're a
separate
different
funding
pod,
pool.
sorry.
Yeah.
I was asking you about.
The trails are.
Sorry to interrupt.
Conservation stuff. Good.
Okay.
Because without the equity, we're just gonna, all of us could just ask for the maximum amount that's in the pot.
Right, you take, if it goes that route, like what you're talking about, we will tailor our applications to get the highest amount of funding possible by choosing the roads that we apply for and the segments that we apply for. We take the highest traffic segments and reduce the size of the project so that we have a larger share of it, and then you get a higher, it's easy to adjust your rank and get the higher. We did that in Northwest Iowa, and
We don't want to be
it's
that.
very competitive.
We want to be game.
I don't think we want to do that.
You say the number I have up there was my regional equity from last year. I thought I put it out there. I'm kind of out of the fray until it's time to do the project. But we don't have those numbers in front of us, so we don't really know.
And for $200,000 or $170,000, I think you could let that go, John. Since we're only asking for 600,000 out of this one.
Right, but I think I'm on the opinion for the regional equity. You know where you're at, or you know where Mills are at?
No, I
Shelby.
don't, not exactly.
Yeah.
I imagine I'm probably over with mine because.
Kevin was pretty busy.
Yeah.
Before you got there
He
too.
was, he was way over there for.
But Glenwood pulled out of Mills County equity. Go back to what you were saying. I don't see how we've excluded them by doing equity. It's then up to Mills County and Glenwood to figure out how we split our equity. Isn't that how it was done in the past?
There's been hard and fast
I mean, you
rule.
would pull out of
The population is what's driving the money coming to the RPA. So, I mean,
what'd you say?
the population is what drives the money coming to the RPA. So even though the state says, well, we don't do this, they're actually
Yeah.
doing it to give us money. So it's. Yeah,
I'm saying the Mills County equity under that. Glenwood.
yeah, your population, your
They have
counties.
their own equity.
Yeah, whether they're thrown into that with population or not makes no difference because the original up till 1993, they had an assignment of their own federal funds that were based on their own population. The county had a separate assignment of federal funds based on the county's population, a rural area, and now it's thrown together. So,
And we have to fight over it. So it's
Yeah.
good.
yeah, it's all kind of a card game.
You getting all that in the minutes?
Okay, so it sounds like you guys want that equity tool back before you're ready to make a decision, is that correct?
Yeah.
I'm just, in the interest of time, we've got about 20 minutes, we gotta talk about our TASA funding still, and then Carlos want to talk about the TPWP as well, so,
That's right.
is that fair?
Well,
I'm-
I don't want to put it off. Let's decide what to do. I'd be willing to reduce ours by 50,000. Well, 49. All right.
I think that throws some money back.
I'm on the opinion of looking for about $2 more million, so no, I don't.
It's always challenging just because we do only get like less than $2 million in funding every year, right? So,
Yeah, there's hardly enough to.
Yeah.
To, try
It's
to.
not enough for one project, we're trying to split it.
Right.
I can reduce mine, but I would like to see the equity come back for future then.
Yeah, if you go, if we go strictly by ranking, there's no assurance of that.
ranking wise between the two new projects, again, we don't have a ranking for the Pottawattamie County project included in this because it was submitted last year, but the
Let's just
Harrison
give it a
County one
3.
did rank higher than the Bluffs project.
I'm sorry.
That's why I was looking for total scores instead of rankings. I was looking for points.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty tough to do that when we rank them that way. And some counties have more traffic on certain, on roads than what other counties do. And, you know, Shelby County's not gonna get anything if we go based on that.
And we can absolutely change the scoring criteria for next year to get more of a numerical score. That's just something we need to make sure that we have a conversation about before we open the call for projects. But it sounds like that's something that you guys would be interested in, and that's something we can definitely look at.
You can adjust the score, you can adjust that scoring so that the counties without as much traffic do better, but what's the point? Just try to treat everybody equally and hope everybody remains.
Cause there's no Shelby County up there, right? So basically, we're eating up their money.
Well,
You could
They have
do
a
it.
project in, they have a project in
Well,
27.
I think Brandon was pretty close to his original.
I think so
His
too.
number two.
Yeah,
I
I think he was, had actually asked for,
think
He's
we're all trying
actually
to stay in our
cash.
lanes at that point. So it's really just the applications this year.
yeah, they're not gonna remain equal every year, and if you try to equalize it every year, you'd be going back to us each taking a section of the
Each
allocation.
of us
like
having
you talked about.
$400,000 projects.
Are we okay if we can go to 0? So if I did,
Like if we go 0 out on this project,
no, at the very bottom number, we're down 166.
Yeah.
That hits 0. We're okay, we don't have to have a cushion there.
We can be
You know
0,
what I'm
we
saying?
can have a 0 instead of a.
It's okay to target
166.
0, not
Yeah.
target a cushion.
as long as it goes, as long as it doesn't go negative, it just means there won't be any carryover balance in 29 either.
If I reduce mine by 125,000. Pick up the rest.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, that's-
I would make a motion to reduce Mills County by 125,000 and Harrison by the remainder.
Everybody okay with that?
We're still under by about 16. So it gets most of it, but not quite all of it.
What did Harrison?
Well, you
Yeah,
can take.
So that dropped the Harrison County project from 600 to 575 and dropped the Mills County project from 1.1 to 975.
So the remainder would be
can
another
take that out.
16 up.
Out of Harris.
You want to just take that out of Harrison? Okay, so minus 16, so that's 0.5. Oh, $50.
John.
But come on, Steph. Take that from Steve.
I mean, we're kind of tossing pennies at this point, but we still need to make sure that that's.
My motion was for the remainder, so the remainder would include that 50.
You might as well just make that 550, because I don't like that. I don't even remember.
There we go.
All right, got a motion on the floor.
So just as a reminder, because we have our technical committee and our policy board, we'll first have the technical committee make a recommendation to approve this table as it's currently set up. And then once that vote is over, we'll move over to the policy board and we'll have that vote as well. Jake is currently working as an alternate for.
Did he give you that in writing?
He did send me an email on that, so.
I'll second Jake's motion that we do what we just did.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor? Say aye.
Technical committee, yeah.
Aye.
So now we would request a motion from the policy board to approve the recommendation from the technical
We
committee.
got a motion.
Motion for
Motion
Geddes,
from Geddes to approve
I'll
the-
second that.
second from Parkers.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great, thanks, guys. All right, so moving on to our transportation alternatives program. We're gonna have these same questions, Angie, for a couple of Glenwood projects that are currently programmed in 24. I did look into TPMS before this meeting, and currently none of these 3 projects are currently set to authorize. So I don't know if these 3 are gonna need to get pushed out to 25 or not, but it's something we're gonna have to look into. Okay. So this is East Sharp Street, walking biking trail, and south of East Sharp, so Glenwood Lake Park, for those 2 projects. And we have 2 applications for this round of funding, one from the city of Logan for their Safe Routes to School Trail Project Phase 1, and one from the Shelby County Trails Board for their Ballpark to Ballpark Trail Phase 2. When we went through the scoring of these projects, they were both very close. They're both very good projects. Logan, I believe, had a slightly higher score. 71 to 65. So I haven't put either project into the program yet. I figured we would open up the room for discussion on those. The way they are currently slated, we won't be able to afford to program both of them in the immediate future. I know that Logan and Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, Logan is hoping to do construction in the spring of 25. I know that Shelby County is also ready to go for construction in the spring of 2025 as well. Staff, we do have a couple questions on NEPA, just as to how shovel ready these projects are and when they will be able to get let. But yeah.
The funding request you've got up there and
Mhm.
for the Shelby County Trails Project.
Yes.
47
Correct.
is different than what we
It
have.
is. So the request for reimbursement on the application was $333,000. But that was carried through without accounting for the 80-20 split on that request. So I had a conversation with Dean, we kind of worked out the numbers a bit, and the federal funding request is this 24,247, is that right, Dean? From what we talked about last time? So that's the 247, which is 80% of what was originally requested in the application.
So the balance funding is available for both of these projects.
Correct.
Everything is fully funded. They have the grants that they have available, and those projects are a go,
Other than the federal portion.
No other holdups or
So
complications.
the city of
or-
Logan, yeah. Yeah, so Logan also submitted for a state TASA fund, which I believe as of yesterday was recommended for approval. So that was a significantly larger request, and but Logan has stated that they would be pursuing this trail project, even if they hadn't received that funding, but it looks like it's very positive and has been recommended, so.
So would that reduce that 333 of Logan with that?
No, so that was, they had a state request and then they had a separate regional funding request.
They'll do more work then if they get the other funding.
Correct.
Yeah, I know they have an extended plan. So one would have to wait for the following year. If we do one in 25, the other would have to come in 26.
Correct. Carlos, how much time do you need for TPWP?
2 minutes.
Okay.
Less than.
Well, since Logan rates higher, and I would make a motion that we fund the Logan project for 25 and the Shelby County project for 26.
You have seconds though already.
We have phase 1.
Phase 1, so this is actually phase 2.
Oh, that's right up there. In the workshop. Let's do that.
Did you make the motion?
I made a motion that
Would you guys
we fund.
be able to accept funding in 26 or?
Actually, we have to have the project done by July 1st, 2025, I believe.
That's a condition of your state rec trails grants, is that right?
Correct.
Are there conditions on the Logan grant as well, you know?
Tyler, do you know if there's any conditions on the other funding stream for your trail that has a deadline on when it needs to get constructed?
We have to get a portion of it funded. One of our grants requires completion by this upcoming fall of 24, but not entirety.
Yeah, because I think even if we approved for fiscal 25 doesn't start until October. So that might put a bit of a delay on that timeline a bit.
That the completion of it with this funding wouldn't be possible.
Correct.
You wouldn't even be able to get started, let the project until October.
And we don't have to have the project finalized. We just, not the entire phase one, but we just need to spend the portion that we got a matching grant from Wellmark for $100,000. That portion of the project has to be completed, but not the whole phase one in entirety.
So would you guys be okay taking funding in 26 then? So fiscal 26, which would start October of 2025 would be the earliest time that would play.
Yeah.
No. That would go that way. All right, well, if everybody is on board, then I would request a motion from the technical committee to recommend this.
I thought we had a motion on it.
Oh, did we?
It was the opposite, it
Yep.
have to change the motion to reverse the project, the years for the project. And we can do that, I'll make the motion.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Second as edited.
Okay, motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Technical committee.
Aye.
And then policy board?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Second by Geddes.
All in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That is our project selection, and we don't need to have a meeting in April unless something else comes up. So congratulations, everyone. Next item on the agenda.
Okay, next item is 2025 draft transportation planning work program.
So I'll take that. We're required to provide work program for the year. This is our fiscal year 2025 work plan. Some of the high level things that we're gonna work on is definitely our long range transportation plan. Trying to do additional block talks at smaller communities, help with trail assistance.
Do you want to explain what the transportation planning work program is pretty quick first, just for new people?
The transportation work program is what allows us to receive and administer funding for this committee. MAPA, is the administrator of RPA-18. As such, since we're getting federal funding from the state, we're required to put together a work program on how we intend to use those funds. Majority of the funds are used to staff this committee and run the committee. Two, we provide technical assistance. So whenever any community wishes us to come out and talk about federal funding, opportunities, we're more than welcome to go out and help. And three, we get involved with different recreational trail groups, et cetera, trying to fulfill that funding gap, right? Trying to find people funding. That's our measure of success, how much funding we can bring to the region. So this is what we have to do on a yearly basis. We develop a work plan. These are just high level, like what we intend to work on in the coming year. One of the biggest changes and the biggest thing is this joint application between RPA-13 and RPA-18. for a discretionary grant for Safe Streets for All. We're working with 6, or is it 7? I forget the number. Communities that are over 2,500 in RPA 18 and 13 and developing safety action plans. That's kind of the big deal. Next page. This is how the funding breaks down. We receive a certain amount of funding. Obviously not enough to staff everything all we want to. This year, the additional line on the bottom is that USDOT discretionary funding. We requested 125, 12,000 for RPA 13 and RPA 18 is being matched by the state through local HSIP funding, which is state and local funds. And the RPAs are going to split out the remainder. So that's what we're looking at. Majority of our time is being spent through developing this regional transportation improvement program and developing working relationships with local communities to talk about safety, to talk about how they could get funding. Next slide, quick timeline. So what we're asking for today, this is the draft version. We need to A, approve the draft, and B, move into a public comment, allow the public to see this. A copy of this is available and hot off the press as of this morning. Next month, not next month, in May, we had to finalize. So if there are any changes and comments, feel free to send them to me. I'll take care of them. We're required to provide this draft document to the state of Iowa. They'll review it for a month, get comments back to us. If we're missing anything, I hope we're not. And then do the final approval in May. The final relationship is June and July. We're working on our RTIP, our Regional Transportation Improvement Program. Lindsay and Rachel are going to lead that. Just giving you a heads up. These are the May, June, July meetings are very important for us to get our work programs done. Next slide.
And I didn't send out a copy of TPWP with the packet this week just because it wasn't ready until about yesterday. But I'll make sure to email that around to everybody to have a chance to review it.
And it'll be available on the website.
Yes, it'll also be available online.
If I thought that might be necessary to explain what HSIP is, Highway Safety Improvement Program that is administered and you do by the DOT with a specific amount of money every year that's set aside for those high accident locations.
So HSIP is what we're going to be using to provide the local match portion of that federal discretionary grant that we applied for and received for action plan. Okay, thanks. Okay. So with that, we're requesting a motion from, I guess, the technical committee to recommend approval and then policy board to approve the technical recommendation.
So moved.
Moved by Rasmussen,
Second.
second by Farrell.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And I'll make the motion to approve.
And Parkhurst motion,
Do I have a second?
second Miller.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yes.
Awesome. And there we go. Thanks, everybody. So with that, we do not need to meet in April unless there are any kind of tip amendments that might come up between now and then. So maybe have them on your calendar as a hold, but not necessarily something we need to do for April. If we do need to meet, that'll be April 10th and 11th. Otherwise, our next official meeting will be May 8th at 11 a.m. And at that meeting, we will be doing our final approval of the Transportation Planning Work Program, which is what Carlos was just talking about, and draft approval of the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, which is the big funding thing that we just talked about for project section.
So get your 75-year plans in, guys.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Winquist motion to adjourn.
Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Thanks so much.
Meeting adjourned.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody online too. Sorry for not sharing presentations right away.
Forgot.
Second.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Tyler.
Just talking to him this morning down there.
I was just at one so far.
Right on.